like and subscribe. Now, if you voted for Donald Trump in 2016 but won't in 2020, what changed your mind? 2016 he ain't Hillary, 2020 he ain't sane. Okay, as someone who didn't vote for Trump, this whole thread is giving me hope. I'm a big fan of personal growth. We all know more today than we did yesterday. I will be undoubtedly wrong about something I believe today, and once finding the truth will be okay with it. We need to make personal growth and being wrong okay. People are too afraid of saying I was wrong that they never truly grow. Not saying being Republican is wrong. Just saying Trump is a weird moment in history and now we are all having to deal with it. I was a Republican by upbringing. I watched no other news but Fox News via my parents until I left for college. Once I gained my independence living across the country for college, I started to develop my own views. I started to get my news from more reputable sources like the AP. I started to realize that many of the views I picked up from watching Fox all the time were very one-sided and often didn't result from an understanding of the full picture. And it definitely took a while, but once I started looking at multiple sources, the biased wording common in Fox articles is easy to spot and easy to avoid no matter the source. Both right and left-wing bias. I should add, at the time of the 2016 election, I was on the fence. Unfortunately, I still held on to the last shred of the Republicans are the good guys. Therefore I must vote for them, and also the Clintons are power-hungry tyrants that I had left over from my childhood. I regret that vote, but that election night marked the last time for at least the foreseeable future that I vote Republican. I'm currently a registered Democrat, though I consider myself a fairly moderate liberal, and I find this position much better suits what I actually believe, not just what I'm told I believe like when I was a kid, and what I find important in how society is governed. TL. Dr. Fox News is basically propaganda, and it's super obvious if you get your news from multiple reputable sources, which changed my views. My political opinions very much lean towards the idea that the government should exist to help, protect, and serve the people, not control them. I felt, and still feel like, that is the opposite of how our government runs. 4 years ago I was a month past 18 and excited to finally have a vote. I can do something, affect change. I can help the world be a better place. I was full of cynicism and hatred for the way the world worked. I wanted to do anything to change it. At 18 years old and prepared with a Southern public education and the words of my Republican father, I was so sure that electing a businessman and not a politician would help. I completely bought into the Trump campaign. I believed everything he said. I was young and dumb and blinded by my anger at the world, and he was going to fix it. So I went with my dad and voted for my first time with no doubt in my mind that I made the right choice. I got my sticker, I took my selfie, and I was proud. Then he won. I was so excited. Something was finally going to change. So I waited, and I watched, and had things started to happen. And like everyone around me, I made excuses. We can't expect him to fix everything in one day, and that stuff is all fake. Someone made it up to make him look bad. Then bad things kept happening, and more information came to light, and they kept making excuses for all of it. Then I got busy. I had a kid. I started my career. I was busy, and I didn't have time to pay attention to the news or politics. I have a baby, for God's sakes, that's enough to worry about. Then life calmed down and I started having time to pay attention to the world around me, and suddenly we were years into his presidency and nothing had changed. The world was not a better place. The things everyone was afraid of that I laughed off as garbage or impossible had happened. The things I made excuses for never stopped. Then I kept paying attention, and things kept getting worse, and I had to accept the fact that I was wrong. I made a horrible mistake, and it had hurt a lot of people. But those people were still abstract in my mind. No one I knew had been directly affected by these things he had done yet, not in a major way. Then things kept getting worse, and the pandemic started, and the choices he made started putting millions of people in danger. And a lot of those people were people in my life every day. My mom is extremely high risk. My boyfriend had to get tested. My kids are at risk. And the feeling got worse. I was put in the position to understand just how bad things he's done have hurt people. I regret voting for him. I regret that it took me having to experience the negative effects firsthand to fully understand how badly I messed up. I wish I could take it back every time I am reminded Trump was elected in part because of me. I will not vote for him in 2020. I don't know who I will vote for yet, but I'm going to make sure I'm absolutely as educated on all the candidates as I can be. And I'm going to try again. I'm going to make a choice I am proud of and hope like hell I'm right this time. In the meantime, I have spent as much time as I can learning about all the things I thought were garbage in the past, and doing my very best to tell everyone I possibly can that they need to listen. Eater. Holy crap, this blew up. First, sorry for the wall of text. I wrote this late last night and I'm on mobile, so formatting is hard. I tried to make it a little better by splitting it up. Second, I am at work right now, so I'm trying my hardest to keep up with reading the comments, but most of that will have to wait another few hours until I'm off. Third, thank you so much for all the awards, my first gold, and upvotes. I was shocked last night before I went to bed when this had 2 replied and 10 upvotes, so waking up to this feels kind of like I'm in the twilight zone. I want to be clear that I did not post this to get a pat on the back or kudos from internet strangers, though I super appreciate it. I posted this in the hopes that someone would see it and realize that they don't have to keep supporting something they know is wrong just because they openly supported it in the past. So to the few nasty replies about hot I don't deserve the praise, that's fine. That's not why I posted it, but you talking down to me for admitting I was wrong and that I've learned and moved on is the exact reason I posted this. Because shitting on me for what I supported in the past is the reason so many people will never admit they were wrong. So if you're reading this and you still support Trump because you think you have to, you don't. You can learn from your mistakes and grow. You can help the world change. Your political stance is not a lifetime commitment. I'll be voting for Biden after voting for Trump in 2016. His politicalization of a pandemic and poor response to it are the main reason for the change. I also strongly dislike the way he deals with Russia and the cronyism amongst his cabinet. I didn't agree with everything George Bush or Obama did it stood for, but I believe they were trying to improve the country in the best way they saw how. Trump seems to be only selfishly motivated and has made a mockery of our nation's highest elected office. I am not proud to live in this country as long as he is at its helm. I look forward to the 3rd of November. I was disappointed with a few things that he did here and there, but I wasn't that aware of the scope of some things, so it didn't seem so bad. Then COVID happened. He didn't wear a mask until recently and suddenly many of his supporters became anti-maskers. Instead of leading by wearing a mask and encouraging people to wear a mask, he continued to not want anyone to wear a mask at events. Then he started encouraging bad treatment of protesters. I literally went from a lifelong Republican to a Democrat within months. It kinda freaks me out that I changed so quickly, but I realized that they've been using brute force to do what you think is right despite what's morally right or what the country wants is just plain wrong. I am less worried about my taxes going up a little if it means preventing a child dying from malnutrition. I am less concerned about making sure there's no welfare fraud if it helps people that truly need it. BTW, I was always socially liberal. I just felt like most social issues didn't belong in politics. I've always wanted prison reform, equal rights for everyone, but I'm realizing most Republican politicians do not want those things. I feel like my eyes have been opened and I literally used to think liberals were oblivious to taxes going up. I was wrong. I am less worried about my taxes going up a little if it means preventing a child dying from malnutrition. I am less concerned about making sure there's no welfare fraud if it helps people that truly need it. Realist right there. You're awesome, dude. I feel like I was flippant in 2016. I'm in a blue state that doesn't split electoral votes, so I felt like I could do it and it didn't matter. Since then, I've just grown as a person. I've gotten married, watched my husband get diagnosed with a disease that would bankrupt us if I didn't have a government job, and it changed how I saw people. No one should have to decide to go bankrupt to get treatment they need to survive. I'm now willing to pay a little more so no one has to suffer like we were so fortunate not to. I've also taken multiple diversity and equity trainings since 2016 that have helped me understand concepts like how saying all lives matter dismisses the point that some lives aren't being treated like they matter. Just personal growth and this sense of not wanting anyone to suffer. I couldn't vote in 2016, but I would have voted for Trump. I will be voting for Biden this year, pulling out and leaving the Kurds to be massacred, never listening to military advisors, committing treason, grossly mishandling a global health crisis at the national level, tear gassing his own people to take a picture with a Bible he definitely doesn't read. Some things are more important than lower taxes. I thought he was better than Hillary, that F politicians type of thing. I hate him. I truly hate him and what he has done to our country. F this piece of sh. Grew up in middle of nowhere conservative town. Took what my parents and others said as fact and adopted their political views. I never did my own research on politics. Since then I've met amazing people who've helped me see things from a different perspective. Now I see the issues with what I believed before. Happy to say that I do much more research and don't just go in the voting booth blind. I'm now pretty far from conservative. I voted and then went to the grocery store with a couple of my younger children. There was a very nice young Hispanic kid working and he helped me put stuff in my car so he could collect my buggy. He noticed my voted sticker on my child and asked me who I voted for. I was instantly hesitant to answer truthfully and I realized I felt shame. After Trump actually won, I said, how much damage can one man really do? That 24 hours has haunted me the last 3 years, and now I'm self-quarantining my family since the 15th of March 20 and I've had too much time to think about what a colossal mistake he was and voting Republican BC the ones in office now are all a death cult. It's been eye-opening. I've told my family if I get COVID-19 and die they have to put on my tombstone, I died BC. I voted for Trump in 2016. As someone on the opposite side, a Hispanic kid, the best apology you can give to that kid is to vote this man out of office. We all make mistakes and sadly it wouldn't be life without consequences. But the best thing is with some mistakes we can fix them. This following November is yours and every other person who regrets voting for Trump. I hope you and your family stay safe during these rough times. Don't beat yourself out too much of the past and focus on the good you want to do in the future. I was 23. My decision was influenced by PPL around me and I refuse to let that happen again. My family and friends are still on the MAGA streetcar. His handling of the different situations these past 3 years has been utter A. I'm truly sorry and I will not be voting for this pig this upcoming election. When he appointed a Goldman executive as treasurer, drain the what, all downhill from there. A lot of people forget that the presidential election isn't just for the candidate themselves. You're also voting for 15 cabinet members, only one of which is actually announced before election day. Factoring in the candidate's political connections is all too often left out of the discussion. It took me a while to figure it out, but that's not the swamp he was talking about. When he talks about the swamp he isn't talking about the various government industrial complexes, the times when you have companies writing the regulations that govern them, or they hire executives from said companies to govern them. That's a-okay with Trump. What Trump cannot stand is the civil service, the unelected bureaucrat who spends 50 years mastering one tiny arcane element of government regulation and shapes how that regulation is applied as the thing that gets Trump frothing at the mouth. It's a power thing. The folks that enforce building codes and labor regulations have always compelled him to do stuff even when he doesn't want to. And he hates that. So, the gutting of our diplomatic corps, the systemic attack on the Department of Justice, the systemic defunding of the post office and Veterans and Affairs are Trump draining the swamp. The deep state that frustrates the initiatives of a new government are professional government employees who have far more control over how things go down than the man in charge because they're the ones actually doing the work. A lot of people looked at that and said, yeah, F the military industrial complex, but Trump doesn't care about that. He cares that the EPA and FBI were mean to him by not doing impossible or utterly nonsensical things because he wants that. The swamp, the deep state, and all that cleaning up never had anything to do with bankers of prisons or arms manufacturers. He has always been contemptuous of formal power structures. Trump is the center of his own universe. Anything that doesn't immediately bend to his arbitrary whims is something to be destroyed. A coal lobbyist runs the EPA. A farmer exec runs HHS. An oil lobbyist runs the DOI. A Raytheon lobbyist runs DOD. A Verizon lawyer runs FCC. A Goldman Sachs exec runs Treasury. This whole country is falling prey to corporate regulatory capture. Don't forget a private college heiress runs the dough. It really caps off the Legion of Doom. My story is a lot like other people's here. I grew up in a small Christian town where everyone was conservative or quiet and climate change was a hoax the climate scientists told us so there would be an economic need for them. I was taught basically that the government is out to get you and so we must have as small a government as possible. Had I done any research on Trump I might have known that wasn't even his goal. But anyways, I was 18 and had gone to the big city for school where there were maybe 5 conservatives. I felt like the world was going crazy and for some arrogant reason, I thought I was seeing what no one else was. I voted for Trump without a second thought. Fast forward a year. I dropped out of that school and moved back to my hometown because I felt like I couldn't handle being around liberals for 3 more years. I started going to community college where I took a macroeconomics class and learned about economic policies from something other than a YouTube video. Once it became clear that trickle-down economics doesn't work, I started to wonder what else Democrats could be right about. That ultimately led me to becoming the BLM marching, Bernie Sanders campaign donating, climate change believing progressive outlier that I am. I work for the United States Post Office. It's a show with this newly appointed PMG. I'm concerned about my future employment, my livelihood. Wish us luck in 2020. I moved out of my parents' house, experienced college, people from many backgrounds, and am in a career where I know what a good leader looks like, and he is most certainly not that. The pandemic. I've never voted blue in my life. Joe Biden will be the first. Get me out of this pandemic hell. I didn't vote for him but I realized the US really dunked up when he threw paper towels at a speech in Puerto Rico after it was devastated and no one had power and thousands were still missing. I will never forget that. He literally thought he was a hero for throwing out power towels. He has failed all across the board. From education to foreign policy he has done absolutely nothing but cripple the systems that people rely on in this country. Friend with an immigrant wife did everything right 6 months in advance and yet her visa paperwork wasn't completed before it ran out. He lets our Kurdish allies die and is a horrible person. I regret voting for this despicable human and his corrupted administration that has made us a shithole country. I couldn't vote in 2016 because I didn't send a request for an absentee ballot soon enough but I was going to vote for Trump because of his plans for the military. I was out processing from the army and wanted to make sure they would get what they'd need to win and survive in combat. But after seeing him handle COVID and claim he was not responsible for anything, that really pissed me the F off. In the army, I learned as a leader you are responsible for everything your element does or fails to do. From the team leader right up to the chief of staff, the president of the United States is responsible for everything that happens in this country, whether they like it or not. I am not voting for Trump this coming election. I did not vote for him in 2016. I was a registered Republican up until his nomination, and then switched, but my dad did. My dad passed in August 2017, and in the months before his death, my dad and I had long talks about Trump. He said he had made a mistake voting for him. He realized that Trump was not the Christian he claimed to be, and that he was not a good man. I think if my dad was still alive today, it would be the first election where he did not vote Republican. I'm not American but my aunt and cousin both voted Trump because they were sick of shitty politicians running the scene. They thought that a businessman might be able to cut through the pig tsunami that is American politics. They are very disappointed in how anti-science Trump is and claim they will not vote for him again. What changed your mind? Long story short, I grew up. I voted third party because I wanted to send a message with my vote. I had been thinking that my vote wouldn't matter. He didn't have a chance in hell and even if he won he wouldn't be able to get anything done because the GOP would have a spine and stand up against things that went against their mission statement or made them look bad. Mud on my face. There. 2016. Haha, how bad could he be? 2020. Really fine bad. What's the worst that could happen? Will this really change your life? Will you die? Turns out yes. I didn't vote, but my dad did. He said that all presidents need to have a straight mind, strong and bold. Then when riots happened, he learned that Donald Trump wasn't the strong, bold leader he thought of. He hid in his bunker not because people were gonna raid the White House. He was just scared. He couldn't give a damn about the people asking for change. Instead of actually reforming corrupt police, he just hid, walled off the White House so no one could go near it. Hello. I'm English and don't have a vote in this. And believe me, we have enough problems of our own over here. But I pay a lot of attention to American politics. It's in the news a lot here at the moment just because of how crazy Trump is. Anyway, I saw a headline the other day that said officials in China were secretly hoping Trump was going to get re-elected because he destabilizes the USA so much. Another 4 years of him will really help China become a more dominant superpower globally as he diminishes the state's power internationally. I just thought, Jesus, that is as big a damning indictment against the man as you could possibly get. He's everything that's wrong with the world today. I'll cross my fingers for you all for the election. Good luck. Trump. China rigged the election. China in your favor, you dumbers. I was a 18-year-old high school kid in the rural South. Family was always Southern Baptist and conservative. I wasn't really to the point where I held my own political beliefs. Just basically took my family's beliefs as fact. I've grown up. I've changed. The world has changed. Even 22-year-old me definitely wouldn't have voted for Trump in 2016, and I won't be voting for him this year either. While I still do hold many conservative beliefs still, I am far from the alt-right GOP voters who will be voting for Trump in 2020. This confuses me though. I'm a Christian too. Go to a Southern Baptist church, but I never once felt like Trump lived out any Christian values. His attack on a Gold Star family, bragging about grabbing women by their genitals, mocking a disabled journalist, etc. I can understand voting for Trump because you like what he says and maybe deep down you enjoy his attacks on others, but I can't imagine voting for him based on your faith, because Trump himself is not a man of faith. Pretty much my entire family is Christian conservative and they think he's doing God's work. It makes no sense to me except to show how insanely powerful confirmation bias coupled with living in a bubble can be. I was 24. I've grown, matured, found empathy for others. Honestly, I started to grow frustrated with the constant tweeting, lies and whataboutism. I also stopped watching Fox News. I wish I was 24 when that happened. I was in my mid-30s before it dawned on me that maybe I was a Republican simply because my parents are. Once I decided to choose ideas based on merit, logic, empathy, and compassion, it all changed for me. That was a paradigm shift that took a while to absorb, that's for sure. So, kudos for getting to that point at such a young age. I was barely 18 when I voted. I was still a senior in high school. I grew up in an extremely conservative town with opinionated parents and a lack of access to the outside world. I wasn't allowed on any social media. Then I went to college and met people of other races, creeds, sexualities, and I learned empathy. I regret my choice and I know that the Trump administration has caused a lot of pain and suffering for a lot of people. I am trying to do my part by educating myself and calling people out on their bullshit whenever I'm in my hometown. Unfortunately, you aren't alone. Many kids are in your situation but end up never leaving. They stay in the same small communities that are shut off from the real world. I see people talking about my hometown Portland like it's some kind of battlefield right now, but really it's super chill and the protests have been super peaceful minus what the police and feds have done. Donald Trump said if he didn't intervene there would be no Portland, and it scares me that people could believe him. I got stuck voting for what I thought was the lesser of two evils, and honestly, I was very influenced by my father. If influenced is being threatened to get kicked out of the house if I voted for someone else. Don't get me wrong, I didn't like Clinton, and even now, I realize I don't like either candidate. I just want it to stop. I don't want a leader that will divide us more. And while I'm more centric in politics, I think we need someone to bring us together. I don't know for sure if Biden is the man for the job, but all I know is Trump isn't going to make America any more great. I don't agree 100% with Trump or Biden, and I don't care if there will ever be a candidate that will align perfectly with my views, but Trump had his time, and look at the country. We're divided, at each other's throats, fighting and rioting and trying to make change while we have a president who is openly mocking everything. I just want peace. I don't know if Biden will bring it, but I know Trump won't. I didn't, but almost voted for him in 2016 thinking he was a successful businessman that would grow our economy and pay off our insane debt. Instead we got the largest deficit, pre-COVID, tax cuts for wealthy, and found out he really wasn't that successful. Just a con man who didn't pay contractors. Hard not to make money when you're a professional cheater. Not talking down to you when I say this. It's a genuine question. But didn't we know he was just a shifty businessman that screwed his contractors for a long time before his campaign? I didn't do enough research to be honest. I knew there were cases where he didn't pay contractors but didn't realize he was purely just a con man. Also, to be frank, part of me thought maybe it would be good to have someone who plays dirty playing for us, hurting our adversaries for our gain. But in the end he conned the American people more than anyone else. Glad I didn't end up voting for him, but feel dumb for occasionally drinking his orange Kool-Aid. I'm so embarrassed to admit it. Hillary has just always been drilled into my brain as the epitome of limousine liberal establishment candidate, and I was livid with how Bernie got shafted. Voted for Bernie in the primary. When election day came, I was coming from work at an auto shop. They were all pumped on Trump and I thought worst case scenario. He f's up and looks really dumb and hurts the GOP. Right? It's not like the people around him would actually let him cause any real harm, right? I was really wrong. This is me in a nutshell. Feel like a complete idiot. But Hillary screamed establishment and her campaign felt like a coronation. And the Trump campaign did a good job of feeding off of that. Plus, I thought, there's no way in hell he will win. So my vote really doesn't matter and it's more of a statement against the establishment. This time around, we've all seen Trump's bullshit. Learned my mistake the first time.